Hello, this is Leroy Meadows, and I want to thank you for joining me here today. In this session, we're going to talk about and do an example of operation costing. Remember, we talked about in the next to the last session when we were going over the PowerPoints and everything. We talked about operation costing and we referred to the book. In this exercise, in this example, we're going to actually work an exercise in applying the operation costing system. So let's go ahead and get started here. The Carter Furniture Company needs to determine the cost of 2 work orders for December 2017. Work order 1200A is for 250 painted, unassembled chests, and work order 1250A is for 400 stained, assembled chests. So we got 2 different work orders here, 1200A and 1250A. The following information pertains to these 2 work orders, and for work order 1200A, we have 250 chests, and we're given 6 different operations. Work order A for the painted unassembled chests, we will use operations 1, 2, and 5. We do not use 3 and 4. For work order 1250A, we will have 400 chests that we're going to make. We will use operations 1, 3, 4, and 5, but we will not use operation 2. Now, select budget information for December is as follows. Total number of chests we expect to make, 800 unassembled and 1,500 assembled for a total of 2,300 chests. Direct materials costs, $52,000 and $180,000 for a total of $232,000. $52,000 of unassembled or direct material costs associated with the unassembled chests, and $180,000 of direct materials costs associated with the assembled chests. So let's go ahead and take a look at the budgeted conversion cost for each operation for December is as follows. And we're given the conversion cost for each of the different operations here. So let's take a look here, and it says using the budgeted number of chests as denominator, calculate the budgeted conversion cost rates for each operation. So I want to go ahead here and plug in my budgeted conversion cost for each of the 5 different operations. Cutting, what was my total estimated conversion cost for the December? $41,400. What about painting? $6,400. What about staining? $24,000. What about assembly? $33,000. And then finally packaging, $11,500. Again, where did I get my budgeted conversion cost? Well, the problem told me here, and we're given the information here. Now, for each operation, I have to determine how many budgeted number of chests are going to pass through. So let's look at the cutting operations. Will the unassembled chest and the assembled chest, will both work orders use the cutting process? Yes. So since work order 1200A is unassembled and work order 1250A is assembled, we're going to take this conversion cost for cutting and divide it by the total number of chests, because both unassembled and assembled chests require cutting. We're going to add these 2 together, 800 plus 1,500 gives me 2,300, and we're going to take that cutting and divide that by the budgeted number of chests going through the cutting department, which was 2,300. And when we do that, what is my conversion cost per chest? I'm going to take my 41,000, divide it by 2,300, and that will give me a budgeted conversion cost of $18 per chest. Now let's look at the painting department. Will I use the painting department for 1, both or none of the chests. Well, we're told here that work order 1200A, which is associated with unassembled, will use the painting services or the painting operation, but the assembled ones do not. So, what are we going to do here? Well, I'm going to take my $6,400 of painting conversion costs and divide that only by the number of chests that are going to pass through that operation. And only the unassembled chests pass through the operation. So the assembled chests do not. So I'm going to take that 6,400 and divide that by the number of chests going through, which is 800. And when I do that, I will get a cost of $8 per chest for that operation. So again, remember, these are different operations. So not every chest will go through this operation, but for the chests that do, they will incur a cost of $8 per chest. Now let's take a look at the staining. We have $24,000 worth of budgeted conversion costs. Now we have to figure how many chests are going to pass through that. Well, we're told here that unassembled chests of 800, which is what work order 1200A is, does not use the staining process because they've been painted. So therefore, the assembled chests will use the staining process as we're told here. So how many chests are going to go through the staining process? Well, not the 800 that's unassembled, but only the 1,500 that will be assembled. So I'm going to take the staining cost and divide that by only the number of chests that are going to be sent through the processor or through the operations. So when I take my $24,000 and divide of overhead costs associated with staining and divide that by the number of chests that are going to only the number of chests that are going to be stained, I'm going to get a cost of staining for $16 per chest. Now let's take a look at the assembling operation. My assembling operation, $33,000. How many chests are going to be assembled? Well, the unassembled ones obviously are not going to be assembled. Only the assembled ones are going to be assembled. So only the 1,500 units that we're going to assemble are going to incur assembly costs associated with that. So when I spread my $33,000 of assembling conversion costs over the 1,500 units that are going to be assembled, I'm going to have conversion cost per chest of $22. Now finally, let's take a look at packaging. For packaging, I'm going to have $11,500 worth of budgeted conversion costs associated with packaging. How many units will we use or will require packaging? Well, both types of chests, whether they're unassembled or assembled, they will require packaging. So since both of them require packaging, I want to take the total of both of those, 2,300, and that's what I'm going to spread my packaging costs over. And that's going to give me a packaging cost of $5 per chest. So now I've got my conversion cost per chest for those chests that pass through each operation here. So now let's go ahead and figure out the cost of work order A and work order 1200A and work order 1250A. And we're going to figure out the total cost associated with those work orders from direct materials and then the conversion costs associated with cutting, painting, staining, assembling, and packaging. So let's compute the direct materials costs of the unassembled order, of the unassembled chests. And we're going to work on computing the cost for work order 1200A first. Now that chest type is unassembled, and we're going to have in this work order 250. So let's figure out the cost of direct materials here. I need to go back to my information here, and I'm told the direct materials cost total is $52,000 for 800 chests. So what are my direct materials cost per chest? Well, if I calculate my direct materials cost per chest, I will have 52,000 divided by 800 chests. And so my direct materials cost per chest is $65. My work order only calls for 250 chests. So I'm going to multiply that $65 times 250, and that gives me $16,250 worth of direct materials cost for that work order. And let's go ahead and format this here. Now, what about cutting? Well, the cutting is what? It costs, for the unassembled, do we use the cutting process or the cutting operation? Yes, we do. And the conversion cost per chest is $18. So I'm going to take my 250 chests unassembled and multiply that by the conversion cost per chest of $18. And that gives me $4,500 worth of cutting costs or cutting operations costs associated with work order 1200A. Now let's take a look at painting. Does the unassembled chest get painted? Yes, it does. So we're going to incur operations costs associated with the painting for work order 1200A. So I'm going to take the number of units that are unassembled in this work order times the conversion cost per chest from the painting operations. And when I do that, I get costs of $2,000 of painting associated with this work order. Now we have to look at staining. Does our order require any staining? Does it go through the staining operation? And we're told here in the information, we do not use any staining and we do not use any assembly operations because these are not stained and they're not assembled. So we just put 0 here. Now what about packaging? We have 250 units that we are unassembled, but they do require packaging according to our information over here. So each 250 unit is going to require $5 of packaging. So the 250 units in this order times the cost of $5 per unit for packaging, and I'm going to incur $1,250 worth of packaging costs for this work order. Now I want to know what is the total cost of the work order for 1200A. Well, I'm simply going to add all these costs together, direct materials and the conversion costs associated with the respective operations that this work order went through. And when I do that, I get a total cost of $24,000. Now, let's take a look at the assembled order. Work order 1250 is for 400 assembled chests. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to take what my direct materials. Well, my direct materials associated with assembled chest, 180,000. So let's get out our calculator. 180,000. And I'm going to divide that by the number of chests I am presuming to make. And in the total period here, in the total month, I expect to make 1,500 chests. So I'm going to spread that out over 1,500 chests. I'm going to get a cost of $120 for the assembled chest. So each assembled chest is going to take $120 worth of direct materials. Now I'm going to multiply that by the number of assembled chests I need this work order. And when I do, I get $48,000 of direct materials. Now, what about cutting? Do the assembled chests go through the cutting operation? Yes, they do. So I'm going to take my 400 units of assembled chests and multiply that by the conversion cost per chest associated with the cutting operation. And that will give me $7,200 worth of costs. Now, will the assembled chests be painted? Will they go through the painting operation? And work order 1250A does not use the operations associated with painting. So therefore, they're not going to be allocated any conversion costs associated with that. Let's take a look at the staining operation. The staining operation, do we incur staining costs associated with this work order? Yes. This work order will require staining, so we're going to take that 400 units that need to be assembled and multiply that by my staining conversion cost per chest. And that will give me $6,400 worth of conversion costs associated with the staining operation. Now let's take a look at assembly. Well, if these chests are going to be assembled, then it stands to reason I'm going to incur assembly costs. So in fact, we look over here, and the assembling of chests we will use for work order 1250A. So I'll take my 400 units that need to be assembled and multiply that by my conversion cost per chest of $22, and I will have $8,800 worth of conversion costs assigned or allocated rather to work order 1250A. And then finally, packaging. These individual units will need to be packaged. So I'm going to take my 400 units that need to be packaged and multiply that by the conversion cost per chest for the packaging operation, and that will give me $2,000. So when I add up my total cost here, I'm going to get a total cost for work order 1250A of $72,400. So that is the cost of my work order. So now that's my cost of goods. Now I'm being asked to compute and calculate the cost per unassembled chest and assembled chest for work order 1200A and work order 1250A respectively. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take my total cost, and let's look at work order 1200A first. I'm going to take my total cost associated with 1200A, which is 24,000, and I'm going to divide that by the number of chests in work order A, which is 250. So when I do that, I'm going to get a cost per chest of $96. Now let's look at work order 1250A. My total cost associated with work order 1250A, $72,400. And how many chests are in that work order? 400. So when I divide that out, the total cost associated with work order 1250A is $72,400 divided by the 400 units in that work order, and we have our total cost per assembled chest of $181. And that is our requirement for 3, calculate the cost per unassembled chest and the assembled chest for the respective work orders. So this is an example of operation costing. A little more complex. We have to really focus on what products go through what operations. Not all products will go through all operations, so we can only allocate conversion costs to those products that go through that operation. And then we can also compute the cost per unit the same way as we would any other product. Total cost divided by the total number of units in that work order to get us a cost per unit in that work order. So this is an example of operations costing. And remember, for operations costing is really a hybrid between job costing and process costing. So we saw both of these in this situation. This is Leroy Meadows. I want to thank you for joining me. Have a great day.